Today we're gonna make birria tacos. Let's get into it. So if you haven't had birria tacos by now, you're really missing out. What birria is, it's a Mexican-style beef soup. You cook the beef until it's super tender and you chop it up nice and fine. You make a taco with it with a little bit of cheese and then you fry it in the fat from the soup. You take the remaining soup base, which is called the consomme, and you dunk the taco in that soup base and it makes for an excellent taco eating experience. So today I'm gonna show you guys how to make it. Without further ado, let's get into cooking. Birria tacos have gained a lot of popularity over the years, and you're gonna see why this is everybody's favorite taco. The first thing we need to do is start working on our adobo for our soup. We're gonna need about 6 guajillo and 5 ancho chilies. To give the adobo a little bit of heat, we're gonna use 2 Chile De Arbol, or you can also use chipotle peppers. We're gonna remove the seeds and stems from the chilies. However, you can always leave the seeds in if you want extra heat. Also, keep in mind we're gonna strain our consomme, so it's gonna get rid of all the little pepper bits and seeds that didn't puree. Next, we need to soften these dried chilies, so in a pot filled with water, add all your chilies, then place the pot on the stove over medium heat and let simmer for around 20 minutes or until your chilies are soft. While the chilies are simmering, we're gonna get the rest of the ingredients ready for our adobo. We're gonna take 1 large onion, cut the ends off, and slice it in half. Please do not skimp out on the garlic. We're gonna take about 10 cloves of garlic, peel them, and set them aside. Next, we're gonna need about 3 medium-sized tomatoes. Go ahead and remove them from the stem, and then remove the core. So now that the ingredients have been prepped, let's make the adobo. Our chilies have been simmering for around 20 minutes and they're nice and soft. To a large blender, add all of your chilies and then some of the warm liquid, just enough to get it to puree. If your blender is not big enough, you're gonna have to do this in stages. So first we're gonna puree the chilies, then once smooth, we're gonna add our tomatoes and all of our garlic. Once the tomatoes and garlic are pureed, we're gonna add our onion and then puree again until smooth. Now it's time to add all of our dry seasonings to our adobo. We're gonna add about a tablespoon each of smoked paprika, cumin, oregano, coriander, and about 3 or 4 whole cloves. Season with a big pinch of salt and black pepper, then add about 5 tablespoons of white vinegar for a little tang. Give the adobo one final puree, give it a taste, and adjust the seasoning to your liking, and that's your adobo. We're gonna set that aside, and then we're gonna move on to searing our beef for our birria. Today we're gonna use a chuck roast and some oxtail. You could really use any beef you want. Short ribs is an excellent choice along with the chuck roast and oxtail. We're gonna cut the chuck roast up into 2 to 3 inch cubes and set aside. There's not much prep for the oxtail. We're gonna place them on the cutting board and then season with a little bit of oil and salt and pepper. Don't be afraid to generously season the meat and then give each piece a rub to make sure it's evenly coated with the seasoning. Next, in a large Dutch oven on medium-high heat, add a little bit of oil and your oxtail. Sear on all sides until nice and golden brown, then place on a baking sheet to hold until the rest of your meat is seared. We're going to repeat the process with our chuck roast until we get a nice caramelization on all sides. While searing the meat might be optional, it does add a lot of flavor to the birria. Some recipes I've seen just have you adding the beef to the soup and letting it stew down, but for me I like to sear the meat, get a nice caramelization, then add it back to the pot later on. Now that all the meat has been seared, let's move on to making the birria. In the same Dutch oven on medium heat, add a little more oil, add the adobo, and make sure you pour fast or else it's going to splash all over the place, and as you can see, I got splashed in the eye and burned the shit out of myself. So now that you've been warned, let's go ahead and give that a stir and bring to a simmer. Add the oxtail and the chuck roast to the pot, along with some fresh thyme that's been tied up in butcher twine, a 2-inch piece of cinnamon, a little smaller than the one I have here, 3 bay leaves, and about 6 cups of beef stock. Season with a little more salt and pepper, give it a good mix, and bring to a simmer. Once the birria begins to simmer, cover with the lid, reduce the heat to low, and let braise for around 3 to 4 hours or until the beef is tender. Now we have a few more ingredients to get together before we start making our tacos. The cheese of choice for this dish is Oaxaca cheese. Most grocery stores carry this cheese. If you have trouble finding it, you can use a low moisture mozzarella, string cheese, cotija cheese, or jack cheese. Now that our cheese is prepped, we need to finely dice 1 Spanish onion and 1 bunch of cilantro nice and fine. Some of this onion and cilantro will go inside of our taco, as well as our consomme when we go to serve it later on. We can't forget to slice up a few lime wedges that we'll serve with our tacos as well. And for tortillas, there's only one type of tortilla you should be using for these tacos, and that's corn tortillas. So now that the birria has been simmering for about 4 hours, we're gonna go ahead and skim the fat off the top, and we'll use this to fry our tacos later on. This step is very important. Please do not skip this step. We need all that fat to fry up our tacos nice and crisp, as well as get our consomme nice and clean. Once the fat has been separated, give that a taste and adjust the seasoning to your liking. Now that our beef is nice and tender, we're gonna place it on a baking sheet to cool, so that all we're left with now is our consomme. So what I like to do with the consomme is I like to pass it through a double mesh strainer to get it nice and silky smooth. While this step could be optional, I highly recommend you guys do it. It gets rid of any little pepper bits or seeds that did not puree, and it gives a nice texture to your consomme. Place it back on the stove and keep warm until you're ready to serve. Now that our beef is cooled slightly, we're going to shred it up nice and fine. If the beef looks a little dry, go ahead and add some consomme to keep it nice and moist. So since the beef is going in a taco, you want it to be chopped up quite small. So run your knife through it a few times and make sure there's no large pieces. Place the chopped beef in a large bowl, then set aside until you're ready to use. So we've got all our ingredients prepped, it's time to start building our tacos. We're going to take one corn tortilla and dip it in the fat that we set aside from our birria. In a cast iron pan or griddle on medium heat, add the tortilla that's been dipped in the fat along with a nice layer of Oaxaca cheese. Once the cheese starts to melt slightly, add a good amount of your chopped beef, a little onion, and cilantro. Add a splash of the consomme, then fold the taco over in half. Continue to fry the taco until crisp, adding a little more fat if needed. Me personally, I add a little bit of fat to each side while I'm frying it. It helps to develop that nice red color that birria tacos have. Another thing that works is if you have a brush, you can dip the brush in the fat and then brush it onto the tacos while you're frying them. Once the taco is crisp, we're going to place it on a baking sheet and continue to fry the rest of our tacos. So we've been keeping our consomme nice and warm. We're going to serve it up in a little 4-ounce ramekin and serve alongside with our tacos. Traditionally, you're going to garnish the consomme with a little onion and cilantro to add some additional flavor. Now we're ready to serve up our birria tacos with 3 tacos on the bottom of the plate, followed by a 4-ounce serving of our consomme, a few lime wedges, and a sprinkle of cilantro just because I have to. Man, my mouth is watering just looking at this plate, and I know you guys are going to love this recipe. Enjoy. So there you have it, we made our birria tacos. Now my sister ended up trying this recipe and she said it was a blessing, so I gotta give it to you guys. Now you know when you're in church and the priest is there blessing you with the holy water and a little bit falls in your eye and then you're able to see Jesus a little bit clearer for that moment? That's what happened to me. That chili oil popped in my eye, burned the out of me, but I tell you what, it was well worth it. Now if you guys want to do this in advance, I recommend separating the beef, shredding it up, placing it in the fridge. Then you take your soup, as it cools, all that fat's gonna go to the top, skim it off, place it aside, and that's what you use to fry your tacos. Then all you gotta do is reheat the consomme and you're ready to go. Leave me a comment, let me know if this was a blessing for you. If you enjoyed this video or you learned something, give us a like, subscribe. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.